I've been collecting action figures for a long time, for about 12 years now, and throughout my collecting journey there has been one toy line more consistent than any other: Marvel Legends. Throughout the years we've seen a lot of toy lines come and go, but ever since 2002, Marvel Legends has always been there sitting on the pegs. When everything else fades, Marvel Legends remains. And the most popular branch of Marvel Legends, the most important figures in the line, are the Spider-Man figures. It feels like a rare occurrence to see a wave of new figures not contain a new Spidey, and it makes sense as the character is insanely popular and easily the best-selling part of the entire toy line. But I feel like these days people are quick to disregard a Marvel Legends Spider-Man as being less than. People love their imports, hot toys, and Lego Spideys, but today I want to explain why we as collectors need Marvel Legends Spider-Man figures, and why they have been and will continue to be an essential part of a Marvel collector's collection. And if you guys enjoy this video, please consider hitting subscribe. I want to make more videos like this, I want to be more consistent, and the support just means so much to me, so thank you. Now, I think we need a bit of history. If you're a fan of this channel, you're probably familiar with a company called Toy Biz. But if you're not, here's the deal. Toy Biz was a toy company that held the Marvel license throughout the 90s and early 2000s. They were run by Avi Arad and were actually responsible for helping Marvel escape bankruptcy in the late 90s, which for a toy company is kind of crazy. Toy Biz was known for its extremely affordable figures with highly detailed articulated sculpts. They had multiple toy lines using the Marvel license, including the popular Spider-Man Classics line, which was sort of a precursor to Marvel Legends, and even some movie tie-in figures, which proved to be very popular. The most popular line the company would produce came in 2002 with its Marvel Legends line. Spider-Man Classics and Marvel Legends basically dominated the toy aisles in the early 2000s when it came to figures of comic book heroes, as they covered every part of the Marvel universe. While Spider-Man Classics fleshed out Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, as well as giving us a lot of gimmick-based figures, Marvel Legends made figures of every kind of character and hero you could think of. The toys came packaged with comic books or the new Build-A-Figure parts they introduced. The figures were highly regarded with how detailed and articulated they could be, while staying so cheap. This proved fatal for Toy Biz, however, as being so dependent on the expensive Marvel license and becoming less and less profitable led to the Marvel license and the Legends line being acquired by Hasbro in 2007. Hasbro had a rough start with the line, as the waves came out way less frequently, and the early Hasbro waves were not really highly regarded by collectors, but in 2012 they announced the return of Marvel Legends, and the line we know today was born. This is where I first heard of Marvel Legends, as it was the same year I started really getting into collecting. My first superposable figure was a Toy Biz figure, and around 2012 I was really itching to get more toys just like it. I remember looking at Targets and Toys R Us for 6-inch posable figures and finding Marvel Legends and the DC Universe Classics figures, thinking they were the coolest things ever. My first pickups were the Iron Man, Thor, and the Dakin figures, and with them I got to experience what Hasbro could do with the line. The first Spider-Man figures introduced in this era were the Big Time and Future Foundation figures, and for the next 12 years the figure line continued to grow. The Marvel Legends line has pushed the boundaries over the last 20 years of what a domestic 1/12 scale figure can be, and have shown constant improvement. However, so did the competition, with companies like Marvel Select, SH Figuarts, Reveltech, Mezco, and Mafex all getting into the figure game. People started to explore options outside of Hasbro, which leads us to 2024, where I feel some people don't give Marvel Legends enough credit, and I want to fix that. So, what makes a Marvel Legend a Marvel Legend? There are a few things you will almost always find in a Marvel Legends figure, the things that make the toy line what it is at its core. First and foremost, a Marvel Legends figure has to be affordable. Now there are obvious exceptions to this rule, such as a HasLab or deluxe figure, but a 6-inch regular character has got to be something that your average collector can afford and buy, and be satisfied with the overall finished product. I understand that prices have risen over the years. I mean, when I started collecting Legends, they were $15 a piece, and now the average price of a retail figure is about $25. Inflation sucks, but the price of a Legend is higher now than it should be based on inflation alone. However, in my opinion, the figures have seriously improved so much since 2012, with better paint, sculpt, and accessories, so I'm okay with spending $25 if the figure is worth it. If a kid mows a lawn or two, that kid could afford to buy a Legend sitting on the pegs at their local Target. Just save your V-Bucks money and buy a figure, I promise it's worth it. Also, shopping smart at places like Ollie's or Amazon, or waiting till things are on clearance can always help you get a better deal. Something that most don't mention about Legends is that they are carried pretty much everywhere that sells toys. Not just at Targets or Walmarts, but places like Barnes & Noble, Walgreens, and Meijer sell the figures too. I love my import Spideys, but legitimately the only place I can buy them is in select comic shops or online. It's the opposite of what I consider accessible. When I was getting into collecting, I had no idea where to look for web exclusives or where to find the latest imports. Most of my friends who aren't really into collecting are able to give it a try because they find a cool anime SHF at their local Target, but you will never find an import Spider-Man there. The best figure is the figure you can actually find. If you've never picked up an action figure as an adult, I think you'd have an easy time understanding how to articulate a Marvel Legends figure, as they are pretty straightforward. The arms and legs move similar to a figure you would have as a kid, which helps with the initial learning curve, and as much as I praise lines like Reveltech, I wouldn't call those figures simple or easy to use. And figure companies like Mafex that have straightforward articulation aren't accessible because of QC issues that constantly plague their figures. I can't recommend to a casual collector a $100 toy that's wrist might break if you look at it the wrong way, but a $25 Spider-Man is a much easier sell. These figures can still hit pretty incredible poses too. They're extremely articulated at times. And don't even get me started on trying to display these figures. A Marvel Legends Spider-Man can just be sat on the shelf and not fall over with too much effort, but a lot of imports, they have such small feet that they can't balance and need a stand. I love the fact that I can throw a Spider-Man toy into a decent pose, put him on the shelf, and leave him there. Sometimes there's just beauty in simplicity. A Spider-Man figure needs accessories. Without them, he can't hit any of his poses. For real though, Spider-Man is one of the most acrobatic, dynamic characters in fiction, and he needs hands that will support this. Now, I know not every Spider-Man figure comes with extra hands, and that always sucks when it happens. But from my experience, a large majority of Hasbro's offerings have come with multiple sets of hands and sometimes a web accessory, and that is one of the things that sets Marvel Legends apart. A similar line from the same company, like Star Wars Black Series, almost never comes with extra hands. But with the Legends Spidey, a lot of the time you get multiple sets. I think it's because a Spider-Man buck is pretty reusable and that saves on cost, so they can throw in the extra stuff. The best thing about this is that over the years I've bought so many Legends Spideys and a lot of the hands are reusable, so even if a recent Spidey doesn't come with enough hands, chances are I have some extra thwippers I can use. I love that a lot of the time you feel rewarded for sticking with a line for a long time, and these figures don't just come with hands. Every once in a while you'll get an extra head sculpt or an unmasked head, which is always awesome. With a Figuarts or Sentinel figure, you get all of these accessories and more, but the point is you get all of this with a $25 Spider-Man figure, not to mention a BAF piece a lot of the time. Now Hasbro isn't perfect, sometimes the parts don't fit with different body molds, and they definitely have their fair share of QC issues. But in my experience, a majority of their output is done well, and for $25, you really can't complain too much. I really feel like Marvel Legends is the people's action figure. Something people take for granted is how many different costumes and looks we've gotten by having a line of figures exist for over 20 years. So many Spider-Man comic storylines have come and gone. We've experienced like 500 issues of Amazing Spider-Man since the line started. It's really cool to be able to get a figure of a current comic design, like when we got the Future Foundation suit, Superior Spider-Man, the recent Miles Morales, or even these. With import companies, you almost never get alternate looks for Spidey outside of the black suit or the Iron Spider suit. Legends makes it so you can really build out your Spider-Verse and see so many designs that honestly don't get talked about enough. Without this line, you would never get a suit like Bombastic Bagman, Cyborg Spider-Man, or the House of M Spider-Man. And if they don't knock it out of the park the first time, the line puts out enough figures that they can try again. There's over 60 years of history with this character, and I'm so glad we get to see glimpses of every era, no matter how small. And that leads me to the next great thing the line does. If there's something Hasbro likes making just as much as Spider-Man, it's Spider-Man villains. There are so many villains in this line. It's so cool to see how many different characters are represented. And like the different costumes, no era goes unrepresented. Characters like Moreland from the J. Michael Straczynski run or Chasm from Nick Spencer's run get a chance to shine alongside classic villains like Venom and Mysterio. For $25 or less, you can start to really build out a nice roster of bad guys to display with your Spidey, and that's something you can only say about Marvel Legends. With the more expensive lines, you never get a Sandman, Vulture, Doc Ock, Shocker. Actually, you never get any import figures of the Sinister Six. If you only collect imports, you're basically stuck with Green Goblin and the Symbiotes. For D-listers like Molten Man or Jack-O-Lantern, Legends is the only way we would ever get these villains, and I'm so glad there's an option to get less popular characters. But certain characters are popular for a reason, and not all designs are created equal. And this brings us to the final section of this video. Listen, I'm no Hasbro shill, but I think they make some great figures from time to time. I've talked a lot about the history of the line and all it has to offer, but none of that matters if the figures are mid. And thankfully for us, they're not. I want to show off a few of my favorite offerings from the line, and what better way to do that than rank my top 5. There won't be any Spider-Man classics on this list, this is pure Legends, so if you're expecting the superposable Spidey to top this list, you will be disappointed, as I don't own the figure yet. This is only figures that I personally own, and with all that out of the way, let's get started. Starting off this ranking, we have the black suit Spider-Man from the retro wave. This is the best representation of the black suit we have in Legends form, and is a definite upgrade from the previous offering. I think this figure uses the retro Spidey buck and has so much more range than the Sandman wave figure. 3 sets of hands should be the standard for every Spidey. You really can't complain about this figure. It moves great, it looks great, and I'm excited for the new Secret Wars figure. I love when a symbiote has slim eyes. It reminds me of the look in Web of Shadows. If you like the symbiote suit at all and can't afford the Mafex and want a great Spider-Man for your collection, this figure is a must-have. For a long time, the original Superior Spider-Man figure would have been at this spot on this list. It has insane articulation, and I really liked the buck it was on. I always thought they should have used it more. For a long time, it was one of my go-to Spideys, but I was waiting for a version that came with the gauntlets and the arms from the comics. This new, updated Superior Spider-Man is everything I could have dreamed of in 2014. The only real improvement would be if he had ab articulation similar to how they do the G.I. Joe figures, a ball joint waist and not just a waist swivel. Other than that, this figure is perfect. I love the main head sculpt. The lenses have this really cool printing on them that makes it look like they're reflecting light. It's very nicely detailed. The other head sculpt is whatever. I would have liked a different expression, but I can get over it. We get all the main hands we need, and thankfully this figure actually included articulated arms, which is a must-have. I love this figure, and as time goes on, it might move up my ranking. Now we need a figure based on his first look, and I'm all set. This figure is probably the most personal pick on this list. The original Spider-Man 2099 from the Hobgoblin wave is such a fun figure to photograph. The sparkly plastic looks so good on camera. The head sculpt is perfect, and the hands fit the character really well. I would have loved it if it came with fist hands as well. I mean, it's on the Pizza Spidey buck, you literally have the hands sculpted ready to go. I don't know why they didn't just repaint them. But honestly, I am just so attached to this figure. I remember getting it as a gift when I was like 15, back when I really couldn't afford most figures, and it was everything I wanted. The Pizza Spidey buck is a little outdated, but I just can't help but love this figure. The modern 2099 figure is really nice as well. It's on a better buck, and is probably a better figure overall, but I prefer the classic look, so it edges it out for me. This figure is probably most people's favorite Spidey. It's a nice pinless update on the retro buck and has a better head sculpt as well. I think the Pizza Spidey head sculpt is still my favorite Legends head sculpt for a Spidey, but this one isn't bad, and the extra Peter head sculpt looks really great. This is just a great look for a modern Spider-Man who moves really well, and the toe joints are fantastic. He can hit most of the poses you'd want a Spider-Man figure to hit, and so if you had to have just one Spider-Man figure, I understand why you would want this one. The Retro Wave figure is fantastic too, so if you can't afford this 2-pack, that one is a fine replacement, but overall, the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man is one of the best figures in the line. But not the best. This is the only choice for number 1. The Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man is without a doubt the best Marvel Legends Spider-Man of all time, at least from Hasbro's era. This figure is executed perfectly. There are no flaws. Every part of this figure is done so well. The figure isn't glossy but has a smooth, matte finish, something I wish the Renew Your Vows figure had. The head sculpt is gorgeous and captures the early Ditko look so well. I just love how different this head looks than all the other Legends figures. He moves better than you'd expect. The disc hinge neck extends far, and if he had toe joints, I genuinely don't think it could get any better than this. He comes with extra hands, he's detailed so nicely. I never put this figure down. If you had to own one figure from this list, this is the one. He's so nice I bought him twice, and I almost never do that. The Amazing Fantasy figure embodies everything great about the Marvel Legends line. This is Hasbro at their best. If you take one thing away from this video, I hope it's this. Just because a figure is inexpensive, it doesn't mean it can't be great. Just because something is simple, it doesn't mean it can't be beautiful. I hope this video has shown why Marvel Legends are valid, that they are worth collecting, and at their best, deserve just as much praise as lines like Mezco and SH Figuarts. Import figures are great, but there should always be a place for collectors on a budget. Without it, I feel like most of us would have never gotten into collecting in the first place. This line has had its ups and downs for sure, but overall I think people gloss over the good work that Hasbro has done, just because it's been around for so long. Marvel Legends is a constant. It feels like it will always be there. I hope that the next time you're at your local Target, you'll walk through the toy aisle and appreciate the fact that we have so many cool figures to buy. Because it wasn't always this way, it might not always be. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.